Keto, no keto.
Good evening, all. My name is Michael Coffer. I'm from New York City. Happy Passover to everyone, and happy 3rd anniversary to the ASL Shabbat Coalition. 3 years ago, at the very beginning of the pandemic, the 4 Jewish deaf organizations, hold on a minute, we do not have a spotlight. Sorry, I seem to have shrunk. There I am. The 4 Jewish deaf organizations formed the ASL Coalition at the beginning of the pandemic. Hillel at Gallaudet, JDC, the Jewish Deaf Congress, the Jewish Deaf Resource Center, and the Washington Society Jewish Deaf. This evening is being recorded. Please, everyone on Zoom, please turn off your videos if you are not presenting. The team has much better control and will be able to spotlight those who are presenting, and we thank you. The past 2 nights, they might have asked a 5th question at our Passover Seder. Why is this Passover different from all other Passovers? It's a good question. The coronavirus pandemic has quickly and forcefully changed our lives and the lives of billions of people around the world. Also, we know that the Ukrainian-Russian war has impacted Ukrainians and all those involved in this war. We each of us have a connection to Ukraine because of our ancestry. Passover has and will always continue to be relevant in our lives because of its powerful themes, very powerful themes. Freedom, gratitude, and renewal. And for this evening, why is tonight different from all other nights? Well, tonight, we will share some of our favorites, our Passover favorites, our stories, our traditions, our thematic messages, and some songs. We will start tonight with Lily Benedict, who will share the Passover story. Happy Passover. Hi, I'm Lily Benedict. That's my sign name. I'm from California. The Passover story. The first Passover happened long ago in the far-off country of Egypt. Some people sign it one way, I sign it this way. A mean and powerful Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. He was incredibly powerful and he ruled Egypt. Pharaoh was worried because he envisioned that the Jewish people eventually would fight against the Egyptians. And he decided that the Jewish people must become his slaves. The Jewish people as slaves worked really hard. Every day, morning to night and night to morning, they hammered, they dug, they carried heavy, heavy bricks. They built palaces. They built cities. And they worked without any rest. The Jewish people hated slavery, hated being slaves. They cried and they asked God for help. God chose Moses. To lead the Jewish people. Moses went to Pharaoh and said, you know, God is not happy with the way you treat the Jewish people. God wants you to let the Jewish people leave. Go into the desert and be free. Pharaoh refused, stamped his feet, shouted, I will not let the Jewish people go, never. Moses warned him, you know, if you don't listen to God, you know, many terrible things are going to happen. We call them plagues, and they will come to your land. Pharaoh would not listen, and truly, the plagues arrived. First, the water turned to blood. Next, frogs, all over the land. Later, wild animals tromped through, in, and around houses. Hail, balls of hail fell from the sky, and bugs, otherwise known as locusts, ate all of the Egyptians' food. So there was nothing growing. Each time a new plague appeared, Pharaoh would cry and cry, oh, Moses, I'll let the Jewish people go. Just stop this plague. But as soon as they stopped the plagues, Pharaoh would shout, no, I changed my mind. So God sent more plagues. Finally, the 10th plague arrived. And Pharaoh had enough, and he ordered the Jewish people to leave Egypt. They got together, the Jews, and were afraid that Pharaoh might change his mind again, so they packed very quickly. They did not have time to prepare any food or even to let their dough rise. They only had enough time to make very flat bread, matzahs. And they tied them to their backs, and they grabbed their things and they left. They hadn't gone very far before they noticed Pharaoh had commanded his army to chase after them and bring them all back to Egypt. The Jews kept on marching away, running away, but got stuck and stopped when they reached the large sea. They thought it was too big to swim over or swim across. And they got frightened that Pharaoh's army would reach them. And they prayed to God. And seriously, a miracle happened. The sea opened up. 2 walls of water stood in front of them and dry land in between, and all the people ran across. And just as they reached to the other side, the water came crashing down, the path disappeared, and now there was a sea between Egypt and the people who had left to be free, and they were free. Each year at Passover, we eat special foods. We sing songs. We tell stories. We sit around the table and have a special meal. And that helps us remember our long ago journeys and our special miracles that helped us go from slavery to freedom. Happy Passover. Hi, everyone. I'm Janice Cole. I'm going to explain the 3 symbols that are required to explain of the Passover experience. First, the Pesach. Second, the matzah. And the third, maror. First one, I'll kind of explain them. Pesach is the symbol that relates to how God's angel, remember the story of the Egyptian Pharaoh? And he wanted to have all the animals, and we were supposed to kill the animals so that the sacrifice to God, so we could paint blood on our doors so the angel of death would pass over us. And the Egyptian army would come and see the red and ignore our houses and pass away from our houses, so it would not affect the killing of the firstborn child. And we were very grateful that we did not have to go through that suffering. What a blessing and what a miracle. And people who, when we arrived in Jerusalem and we celebrated and we built our temple, we would give a sacrifice, and the name of that sacrifice became the Pesach offering. The second symbol is the matzah. It symbolizes the bread that we were too busy to finish baking as we were leaving, escaping our slavery in Egypt. There was no time to let the bread cook or rise, and we just threw everything in our backpacks and we shoved them on our backs and we ran out. And so that's why it's thin and it's baked like a cracker. And it teaches us and it reminds us to prepare. Sometimes things just happen really quickly, and it doesn't matter. We can accept the challenges and our responsibility of those challenges. The third one, the maror, it's an herb, it's a bitter herb. And that reminds us of the tears that we experienced as slaves, and that awful embitterment of slavery and the oppression and our cries of frustration and all the challenges that came with it. And we have sweet things in return to hope for a future, and we hope to look forward to a better life. And it teaches us to accept our challenges and accept our struggles and accept our frustrations, not just ignore them, deal with them, and it's part of the process. And we must go through these bitter experiences in order to look within. and truly understand ourselves better as a human. If we don't have tears and we don't have prayers, and we had left Egypt without all these things, there was no bitterness, no struggle. The success would not have been as sweet. And finally, people all over the world who are struggling with oppression since the dawn of time, since it's our responsibility to make other people feel safe and to make sure we all feel safe together. In conclusion, those three items, the Pesach, the Matzah, and the Maror, symbolize gratitude and hope and strength. Happy Passover. Hi, I'm Steve Weiner. I'm in Boston, Massachusetts. Oddly enough, my Hebrew name is Pesach, Passover. Passover helps us believe that when we discuss the history, there are 10 plagues. It's a highlighted moment. And these 10 plagues explain the suffering related to Egypt, the Egyptian people who may have caused it, the future of our leadership and our safety, and how we became safe and free from slavery. And some people wonder how God, who is so powerful, should there have been pain for all? God chose the Jewish people and had them help them leave slavery in Egypt. There are other communities, other atrocities. The Ukraine, Holocaust, we're seeing all the unjust invasion of all these countries. And these 10 plagues are very similar, very parallel to what's happening in the world from our past history, when we crossed the Red Sea or the Sea of Reeds, until today's. And these 10 plagues today, maybe we're going to have, it's a metaphor for tikkun olam, how we can repair the world. And these 10 plagues, now, maybe we can discuss some of them. Like for example, blood, the water turned to red blood, red water in the Nile and all the water in Egypt. Well, let's compare that to the pollution of our streams, the lakes, the oceans, households and factory garbage dumped in, oil, chemicals are spilled into our waters. Chemical warfare, as an example, in Syria. And even though we hope it's not the case, we know that there's possible chemical weapons to be used against Ukraine. The second plague, frogs, covering all the land of Egypt. The number of people and animal abuse that we see is increasing at a very alarming rate. We need tougher laws to keep frogs in ponds and to keep them safe in their home habitats. The third plague, lice, it also covered the land of Egypt. We have seen evidence of xenophobia, anti-immigrant behavior, anti-Semitism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, all caused by the fear of the other. Instead of accepting each other, we need to get rid of the lice. Flies, which also filled all the houses and the homes in Egypt. I equate that to terrorism. It's ever present worldwide, such as the Russian army, who are killing and not cherishing human life. They're killing innocent Ukrainians indiscriminately. In Tel Aviv, Hamas is killing and hurting innocent people. The fifth plague, cattle disease. In Egypt, all of the cattle got sick and died. Now, with our coronavirus and the present day pandemic, it's interrupted our food supply. Putin's war in Ukraine is even causing more of the domino theory. The sixth plague, boils. Festering bumps and itchy bumps on the Egyptians and on their animals. As a comparison, the media creates and maintains unrealistic expectations and leads to body shaming, eating disorders, and an unhealthy obsession with appearance regardless of gender. The seventh plague, hail, it strikes everything in its field. Doesn't matter if it's human, animals, trees, the hail affects it all. And I equate this with human extreme weather conditions impacted by global warming, ice storms in Texas. California has wildfires. We have a rapidly increasing of tornadoes and hurricanes, more than ever. The global warming is occurring almost 10 times faster than the Ice Age recovering warming. Our eighth plague, locusts. Locusts come in and devour every tree and plant in the land of Egypt. The locusts that we have in our communities basically are caused by guns, the widespread use of guns. So the shooting massacre in Columbine in 1999, the shooting in Sandy Hook in 2012, at the church in Charleston in 2015, and even the Brooklyn subway last week. That Second Amendment was ratified 230 years ago. That was the time when muskets were used. And they could fire 3 rounds a minute. The ninth plague, darkness. It covered the land of Egypt for 3 days. Extreme violence, lynching, those were common during the Black Code, which was during the Reconstruction era and beyond. Systematic racism continues to exist today. Maybe the Reconstruction era never ended. We're still negotiating that. And the last plague of all these 10 was the slaying of the firstborn Egyptian. So the babies died. We see reports of violence in the news. We see lots of violence. It's sadly become the norm in today's society. We feel like maybe we've become to how numb it is because all those evils are happening so much because the media has caused this to continue. It's become the norm because we see it happening so much, we just become numb to it. It's no better than wars where there's always atrocities that occur to innocent people, always. So that's the 10 plagues in a nutshell. But I want you to understand that we believe that it's related to 10 plagues, possibly related to how we deal with it today, because it's relevant to all of us. I see parallels. And I think it's important, without sharing and working to maintain the understanding of what and why these atrocities take place, it increases the possibility of history repeating itself. as we've seen recently in Ukraine. So what can we do about this? I'm going to open this up, not quite for discussion, but I want you to ask yourself, how can we repair or improve the world with positive action? One example today is to see that we're going to open it up so you can actually see how we can improve with your ideas. And one example is Germany today is a better place because the Jews and the Germans do not allow that country to forget what happened nearly 80 years ago. That's my example. So that's it in a nutshell. If you type in your comment in the chat, I'll read them and I'll sign them. We're not going to spotlight anybody. It's not a discussion moment. It's just 2 minutes if you have something you want to contribute. I see something. Let's see. Okay, so I see donate money and volunteer and give your time, give your love, show more respect for other people, mutual respect, reconciliation and peace, the list is going fast, so I don't want to miss anything. Hold on just a minute. Involve local, state, and housing authorities to work together to write legislation and Congress. Signing rights for deaf children. So more Jewish deaf resources. Volunteer, get involved, we said that. Yep. More Jewish deaf resources, absolutely. Equal access in Jewish spaces. Homeless people, go up and say hello. Chat with them. Lobby federal government. Less restriction for open up our borders, less restriction. Equal access for Jewish deaf people. I think we've said that. We're almost running out of time. I only have a couple more. The list is going on, and I'll just pick 3 more. Vote, go and vote. It's not just the presidential elections. We're talking about your congressmen, all the people who affect your laws. It's not just the president that you need to vote for. Be kind. Okay, so there's a lot coming through. So I'm gonna, wow, this is powerful. Look at me. If you could see through my shirt, you'd see goosebumps. This is great. So I think maybe the moderators can save the chat and all of you can share this with each other later. That would be fabulous. Thank you very much and happy Passover. Hello, hello. My name is Ellen Roth, and I'm Janice Cole. And our prayer is called Dayenu. It's a great prayer of grateful people. We're going to explain our prayer. And we are a grateful people that are wondering, God, we have God, but There's nobody like our God. You are the eternal God. We shout Dayenu because each of God's wonders, that would have been enough. But God did so much that we are so grateful for everything. Wow. Dayenu actually means, God, we thank you for overdoing it. Dayenu is a reminder to always remember, never forget the miracles in our lives. Everything, our food, our homes. When we stand and we eat and we thank God, we don't overeat. We should just be grateful for what we are given. So we're going to go ahead with our prayer and have a new reason to be grateful. If God took us out of Egypt with an outstretched hand and an outstretched arm and with signs and wonders, wow. Dayenu. All the Egyptians had their idols and God destroyed them. All the idols. Oh God, Dayenu. God divided the sea and let us cross over onto dry land. Wow. Dayenu. God fed us with manna and gave us Shabbat. Ah, oh, thank you, God. Dayenu. God brought us to Mount Sinai, and God gave us the Torah. Wow. Thank you, God. Dayenu. God brought us into the land of Israel. And God built our temple. Oh, thank you, God. Dayenu. For all these, alone and together, all of this, we are so grateful. Thank you, God. Dayenu. 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 Yay! Thank you. Hi. My name is Lael, and I'm Adele Eberwein, and we live in the Bay Area in California. So I'm going to ask the question, why do we have matzah? We have matzah because when we left Egypt, we were in a hurry and there was no time to make good bread. Why do we have horseradish, the maror? We were hard worked as slaves, and the horseradish is bitter like our life was. You know the green vegetable we have to dip it twice. How come? Why do we dip it in salt water? Well, it helps us remember that we're mixing happy beginnings of spring and the tears of pain and sorrow. So you know how we're supposed to sit up at the table? How come we're allowed to sit down really kind of slobby? We can't do it every day. You tell me no, how come? I know we have rules, but you know, free people could sit any way they want. Slaves were not allowed. Happy Passover. Happy Passover. Hi, hi. Hello. Happy Passover, everybody. Happy Passover. Where are you from? I'm now in New York, but I was from Uzbekistan. I'm in New York City too, but because of COVID that impacted me, I've been stuck. And my family is everywhere for 2 years. I think they're in Chicago, but the interpreter couldn't tell quite clearly. So we've had beautiful meals. And I know that there's people from Iraq who come here, who've been online, and we've got so many people here visiting. So I used to be in Maryland, but you know, where we're from originally, Uzbekistan is one of the places I'm from. Samarkand is the name of, that's the sign name of our Samarkand name. Why? Because we have buildings that have those famous regal building tops, and they are identified by the tops. They look almost like mosques, but that's not the sign. So this is the sign name for our town, Samarkand in Uzbekistan. And it's open to everyone who if you traveled, it's a very open city. It hasn't been closed for a long time, but the history is it's a very open and welcoming city. So can you tell us some more about your country, like where it is exactly? And let me see if we can show you on a map and how we showed where we had our celebrations for Passover. It's in Central Asia. And it used to be part of Russia a long time ago. And 18 or 1991, it changed. So where about your Passover? Oh, so go ahead. You want me to keep going with my story? Oh, okay, I'll continue. So when we were growing up and we were born in our country, we had experienced family Passover never was allowed to have one. We were in a deaf school in a part of Russia that was far, far away from our families. And we grew up in that Russian community. It was communist, so we weren't allowed to practice our religion. We knew nothing about being Jewish. We grew up with absolutely no information until we got together in the summertime with our family. But we didn't really have like a Passover celebration. Around the late 1980s, excuse me, we emigrated. Things got very confusing politically. And we ended up in another country for 4 years waiting for our passports before we had permission to move to America. So we celebrated my 16th birthday there, and all the family came, and it was wonderful. It was clean and nice and everything. I was kind of confused because it was Passover and it was my first celebration of it. So we had many rules to follow, how to clean absolutely every nook and cranny in our house. And it was an interesting experience. And when we moved to America, then we kept our traditions going. I can expand more, but let me find out from you. What do you remember about Passover? I was trying to think about my memories, and I don't think I have very many memories of my first Passover. But one thing I do remember, when I moved when I was 9 and my sister was 16, we did celebrate Passover, but we had escaped. I'm not sure of the time frame that we did, maybe in May. So Passover was much earlier than that. So I don't really have clear memories of the cleaning and stuff. But I do remember a very interesting story of our home country. And the fascinating story about that, I don't have very many other memories, I guess, because I was so young. But I remember one time we were walking around and there was a Jewish organization called Our Way, and they invited me to come to Passover. And maybe I was 11 or 12, maybe, and I went. And most of the people in that organization are Jewish. Many of them had maybe emigrated from Europe, some from Russia, but we were sitting at this big table and it looked simple. There was a few dishes of very simple food on the table. And the prayers were short. Remembering my family prayers were like forever. And the first thing they gave us was this thing to eat, I don't know, it tasted different, gefilte fish. And I had no idea. People covered it up with horseradish. It looked red, it was white, it was either one. I tasted it. And I was pretty glad that there was horseradish because it gave it some flavor. But we ate, and I remember that mostly because people kept saying, come on, we're going to go hide the matzah. Why are we going to hide it? I don't understand. So when we find it, we say a blessing and we get to have a prize. And I didn't know what they were talking about. What are we hiding a piece of matzah for? So one of the rabbis, I can't remember his name, but he showed us about the hidden matzah and how he put it between like a door, like in the prayer book, like right on the bookshelf, he put it between two prayer books. And that ended up being the first place we looked. But maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years later, when I moved back, and in Washington, D.C., there was no family there, but I understood and got involved with Passover. And maybe I was maybe 18 or 19 years old now. And I started hanging out with another family. And if I don't live in Washington, D.C. anymore, I'm going to have to understand about my culture. I have to learn how to cook, how to clean my house, how to do all these things. It was quite overwhelming. The full horrors of all the memories and all the good food and just the smells, everything just felt wonderful, like a full banquet. So that's what I remember, are all the different kinds of foods. And I'm fascinated with the perspective of the different plagues and the different eatings, and like the egg and the bitter herb and all the items on the Seder plate and all the purpose and what they all represent. And so for me, it reminds me of all the bitterness of slavery. And it's the same interpretation that was shared several times tonight. But one of my favorite stories is with the charoset. It's a mixture of, what do you make it with? Black raisins, walnuts, wine, I crumbled up walnuts, and apples. Some people add apples, some people add cinnamon. Oh, it's yummy. It's interesting because I'm used to eating European foods, and I moved to America and I'm having food with my family, and it tastes very different. Like some are sweeter than savory. So I'll show you, I have a quick sample of my food. See, there's my food. This is a big, dark, almost black raisin. It's a very rich taste, very soft, very moist. I don't just eat that, but it could taste like you could add it to any kind of food. You can get it in any Middle Eastern store, but I can't say you'll never have it like that again, but it'll totally affect your cooking and foods from now on very differently. So my sister, over the weekend, we were talking about experiences and what you remember, and about communism and our family, and in our Mizrahi family, which is our Mideast Spanish family. So all the people in the communities, when they celebrate, it means it makes it easier for us to celebrate because everybody's celebrating similar holidays at the same time. But with limited resources, it's hard to make some of our Passover foods. So I'll show you a picture that was fascinating to me. There was a group of two of my hearing sisters, some parents and an aunt, some cousins. We all got together. We all agreed to set up a Jewish bakery kind of thing with a clay oven. And we set up a schedule so each of the family members could take turns cooking in it. And the whole family got together to make Passover foods all day, baking all day. So, the matzah looks round, but not in the stores. So we made it so it looked round. Whatever food you have, we tried to cook with it. When they moved to America, they were shocked at the cultural transitions because the Passover foods are so different. The special foods we couldn't find. That we had to look for the kosher for Passover symbol on everything. It was hard to find some of it. We had to chase down food so we'd have enough. When we lived in Europe, it was a bigger area, 100,000, wait, that's the wrong number, 50,000 people in our community, and everybody celebrated. So we all moved to Israel or we moved to America, only 15 family members were left. And you know that the temple, you need a minyan, a group of 10 people or more to make food. So to have a meal and have anything, you needed more than 10 people. So it wasn't always accessible. People were missing and we did not have the access. So in our community, we try to keep it so that we make sure enough people can share Passover and celebrate and keep our resources to be able to share with each other, which is really kind of nice. And my interesting experience is that I'm married to an American person who, when we have our family meals, we are required, in quotes, to have Passover must have a jacket. Why? Because we're feeling like we're carrying our food 4,000 or 5,000 years. We came from the old country. So the Bulgarian Jews carry this tradition of wearing clothes as if they were leaving their homes. So we put on a coat, and I'll show you a picture in a second. And when we say the blessing of the Pesach, we pass the coat along with the food. It takes a while, takes a very long time. We start our meal about 7:30 and we actually eat at 10. Wow, that's early. I understand that. That's fascinating. So I know that your culture and my culture are very different, especially when we involve the Jewish religion. So a lot of it's patriarchal. And so it depends on what the oldest man decides to do to be able to pass along to the next person in charge is the oldest women. And it keeps on going back through the generations that way. But imagine with all the aunts and uncles and cousins that at one table, it takes forever to do the coat sharing. And meantime, everybody's laughing and talking and starving for food, but it's really a beautiful tradition. As far as the food, it's very, very different. Bulgari food and Mizrahi food are very different than the Ashkenazi food. The Eastern European and the Spanish Europeans foods are different. One of the differences is soup. We don't have matzo ball soup. We have a strong influence from Asia. So we have egg drop soup. And we break matzah in it. I'll show you a picture in a second. And the charoset that you explained how to make, we use it with raisins. So we also don't do the 10 plagues the same way. So when I married my husband, we take turns. We have two different worlds. So he likes sweet, I like the other. So we alternate our foods. And sometimes we'll taste our soups and it's like, that's not what I'm used to, but this is a good soup anyway. Our charosets are different. When our moms passed away, we figured, no, it's our turn. The tradition has been handed down to the next generation. So trying to make our food, our matzo ball soup, all our foods, I'm learning how to do it from a different culture. And it's a great combination of worlds. So you wanted to show something to us. Yes. So we do a deep clean and we wash our windows. In my home, our windows are maybe 13 feet tall. Oh yeah, we have 4 windows too. I'm impressed. 40 windows like all around the house. So I get it. So remember, I told you there's no limit to what we're doing. So we have to climb ladders. My sisters and I, we used to take Windex, which we didn't have in those days, but we would make our water, add some soap, make sure, and newspaper, climb to the top of the ladder with this wet stuff, squeakily clean the windows, and then squeakily dry it and drop things so before we dropped ourselves off the ladder. So 13 or 14 windows of feet of windows, inside and out. We obviously can't do the outside, but we did do the inside, the shelves, all the nooks and crannies, every single aspect of our homes. We scrubbed it top to bottom. It is every single year. It's a fascinating story, but you know. Let me show you a slide for, yes, show us your slide. So here's where we live in Uzbekistan. Oops, wait a minute, interpreter can't see the signing happening. There we go. Okay, so you can see where we are. Next slide, please. This is in 1935. You can see the matzah is round and it's rolled out like pizza dough, and it's used in a tandoori, the clay oven. Oh, there we are. Oh, wait, go back one more slide. You just jumped a slide. Oops. But you can see here's the coats that you have to put on and take off to hand over to the next person. These are the heavy coats that we were describing before. These are the family. This is just recently. This is this past weekend in some of these pictures that we got to celebrate together. And you can see the passing of the matzah and the passing of the coats and the passing of the tray, and just beautiful, having a lovely memory. We can explain more about the coat and hat. You can see the differences in the coat and the hat. After the slide is gone, I'll explain a second more. So the Mizrahi haroset is made with the black raisins, as we described earlier. And there's the egg drop soup. And our wine, 4 cups, 4 times, and our prayers and our table all set up. And you understand that the wine, I remember from being exposed to my other families in Passovers. And as far as the family celebrations are different depending on where you live. And I don't remember seeing this, but I was told that when we drink a cup of wine, you bring to the water bowl and dip the wine cuss into the water bowl. And you wait when the prayer is finished, then you drink that again. And then you have to keep going back and dipping the wine glass every rotation. You dip it into a water bowl. And the reason is because of all the suffering, the dipping gives us a new rebirth. So we finished our suffering and we are reborn as free people. So we can continue with our Jewish culture and our Jewish traditions. But it's a new time. So we don't dwell on the past other than to remember it, but we know that we take advantage of having that. And with the coats and the hat, I guess in 2007, when I graduated from Gallaudet, I wanted to celebrate with my family. And we went to Europe and we traveled around Spain and we traveled around other countries. We went to see Toledo in Spain, and we climbed a mountain and we were on a plateau and we thought we were at the top of the mountain, but it was so amazing. I can't remember exactly where we were or who we were with, but we were all standing there And our guide, Jewish, said, I just want to suggest to you that it looks like the same idea of when we read the story and the pictures of how people looked when everybody got all dressed up and fancy, like the 6th or 7th century BCE, with the hat and the coat. It was almost exactly like we saw in our home. And it was such a culture shock to see that this was the attire in those generations, all those generations ago. And we're in the top of the Spanish mountains, and this is what the people still dressed as. So the Bulgari community is worldwide, and it was quite fabulous. And how beautiful. So I just want to wish you all, we want to wish you all happy Passover as we dance our way off the screen. Hi, everyone. My name is Silas Kalami. And I'm going to sign to you the song, Let My People Go. When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Thus saith the Lord, bold Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your people dead. Let my people go. As Israel stood by the waterside, let my people go. By God's command it did divide. Let my people go. Thank you. Happy Passover.